You mentioned some of the physical benefits of rucking, but you've also alluded to this, and we alluded to this also in the introduction, that it was really good for you personally, mentally and emotionally. Can you describe that?
Yeah, I feel like just like struggling with anxiety, I feel like we're all like up in our heads and a lot of us spend so much time indoors. I can't remember. It's like over 90% of our day is spent indoors, and I would say that's probably an underestimate for most people. And I think one, it just got me outside and I was just like really able to connect with nature. Living in Minnesota, I feel like regardless of the season, it just like made me observe all of those things and just kind of reconnect in that aspect. It just helped with, I think, clear like mental clarity overall, just creativity, spending that time outside. But I will also say the social component. So what's nice about rucking is if you have, buddies or people that you want to work out with, you can really kind of even out. For example, if you have a friend who, maybe slows you down a little bit, but you really enjoy your time together, you can throw on a ruck with maybe a little bit more weight. And now you're still getting a good workout, but you're also getting that social component too. So I think that's one of my favorite things is just like getting outside, like putting our rucks on, like going for a ruck with my husband. And just like, I think there's research that if you're facing the same direction and walking the same way, it's great for just like conversations. You don't have screens that are distracting you. And I would say that's probably one of my favorite things.
So there is actually research on that.
I believe so. I can't remember. I linked it somewhere in the book. I talk about it, but I can't remember what
Awesome.
chapter.
Awesome. That's fine. No, that is great.
Yeah,
It's
it's great for
something.
conflict resolution. Yeah.
Totally. No, that's something I've always noticed. I'm not aware of any research that's been done on it, but I haven't looked. But that's definitely something that I noticed. Like in particular, I remember I would have to do like a weekly meeting with a manager, and he's behind a desk. I'm sitting in a small chair. He's sitting in a big chair. He's facing me. He's up above me, and it feels like conflict. And so I finally just asked him, like, look, dude, like we are spending way too much time inside. Both of us like to be outside. There's a park right next to the building. What can we just do a walking meeting? Like we don't need to see her face to face. And that alone just felt so much better. Like you're moving. It feels like you're moving together, discussing problems, not like confrontational facing each other. That's something I've always noticed. It's so interesting.
Exactly. So it is fantastic. I think in the workplace, at home, and you just don't have any distractions either, which I feel like really gives you that like groundwork to be able to have some difficult conversations.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, back to the physical aspect. What is it about rucking physically that's so beneficial for people versus, say, go to a gym, do your traditional like strength training program? Obviously, you can do both is probably ideal, but what are some of the key differences that make rucking, superior in certain ways in your mind?
Yeah, and I will say rucking, it's great for building muscle and losing fat. You get that cardiovascular benefit, but it does not replace formal strength training. So I would say there's still, it's great for lower body strength. So being that you have like a ruck, so imagine like a backpack, for example, on your back, you might also see weighted vests. There is a little bit of a difference between the two that we can talk about. But I will say that you oftentimes get a stronger core. You get some of the posture benefits. So again, like being indoors, hunched over our laptops all the time, the ruck will straighten you out a little bit if you have your weight on your back. It's also great for bone density. So I think that that's something that we don't appreciate enough is just the importance of bone density as we age. And rucking is a weight bearing exercise. So it helps give that stimulus to your skeleton, especially thinking about like perimenopausal women or postmenopausal where that estrogen drops. A lot of time bone density can drop off as well. And thinking about a lot of folks that I work with having had weight loss surgery, losing obscene amounts of weight, oftentimes your bone density goes down, and rucking is something that can help counter some of that too.
Got it. When we compare it, not just to strength training, but other quote unquote like cardiovascular exercises like running or cycling or whatever, rowing, is rucking more beneficial? Is it similar as far as the quote unquote cardiovascular benefit?
Yeah, I would say it's more accessible just because it's low impact. So if you were to compare like walking and running, rucking's going to be closer to walking where you don't have that impact on your knees or your joints as much. So I find a lot of people, especially as they age, maybe they love to run, but their body just doesn't allow them to anymore. And rucking is a great, I think, option for that. You can start light. So if you have a walking routine already, you can throw 5, 10 pounds in a backpack and, now you're rucking. So really, I think for a lot of people that have an established walking routine, or even if you don't, it is really easy to start because I think, as you know, with strength training, there's a learning curve and sometimes it can be very intimidating to know where or how to start.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the running and the impact, and I didn't know how bad the numbers were until I read the book Born to Walk by Mark Sisson and Brad Kearns. They talk about the injury rates for runners, and it is staggering how many injuries most people deal with if they're doing like chronic running all the time, especially in running footwear that is not designed with our health in mind. It's pretty bad out there. Just have a something else that somebody can do like rucking and feel like they can get a nice level of exertion without having that type of impact must be yeah, way more beneficial.
Yeah, and I have a table in the book too where I did a 1 mile walk versus a 1 mile ruck, and all I did was throw 20 pounds on. I wouldn't recommend starting there for most people, but I like my heart rate was up 50% higher, and really I didn't change anything else but add weight. So it was relatively flat. I didn't change distance or time, and you really get again that good cardiovascular burn without really changing much.
Yeah. And when I think about a 50% increase based on where I know my normal walking heart rate would be, a 50% increase would put me right in an optimal fat burning zone. If we take the 180 minus your age formula and assume that's going to be very, very close to a maximal fat burning output, a math formula essentially, I'm assuming that's what it did to you, put you at maybe like a 5 out of 10 for exertion and put you in a much better kind of like a fat burning zone.
Right. And you get a huff and puff. I feel like it certainly like feels better. I think just, a lot of people feel like they're just walking. I'm doing like my air quotes for listeners because it just doesn't feel like enough. And this is one way to help, I think, add more challenge or add more intensity without really rearranging your day around a gym session.
Yeah, got it. Okay. You mentioned the different types, and I think it is a good idea to kind of talk about that. Weighted vests, a backpack with a bunch of rocks in it versus an actual ruck. Like, what are the differences and benefits or drawbacks to any of those?
Yeah, I'll start with a weighted vest because I think that's what I'm seeing more of online or social media. Usually, a weighted vest is going to be a fixed weight. So, oftentimes, like if you're going to scale up, you have to buy a new vest. So, I think that's one disadvantage. I will say that with a weighted vest, for anybody that struggles with balance, so if you're a little bit wobbly on your feet, so thinking like older folks, for example, a weighted vest might be a better option because it has the weight on the front and back. So if you struggle with balance, it can just help you feel more supported versus a ruck, which is actually like a backpack with padded straps. It holds the weight high and tight on your back. So it's going to hold things a little bit more comfortably. And that's going to, having the weight on your back, pull your shoulders back, and you get some of those posture benefits as well. So I will say with a ruck too, you can easily swap the weight plates out. So usually it's just a cast iron rectangular plate and you can, swap out maybe 10 pounds for 20 and it's a little bit more adjustable when it comes to weight. So when you're wearing your ruck, or you could even start with like a backpack that you already have, you don't have to go out and buy anything, but as you scale your weight up, you're probably going to want something a little bit sturdy and just making sure you keep that weight high and tight on your back as well.
I was going to ask if there was a certain height where you want that kind of center of gravity. And you mentioned high and tight. Like, how high are we talking on the back?
I would say like mid back between your shoulders, and you don't want it like banging against your back. So, for example, like I've seen some really creative setups where people are using a towel or an old yoga mat and just kind of positioning things so that weight is stable too, because it's one thing to throw a couple textbooks in a backpack, but now you've got things like moving around, and then that's really going to, like stray off your gait and lead to injury as well. So having that high and tight, I would say for most people, between the shoulders, and then just trying to avoid like thinking about putting weight in a normal backpack, it's probably going to sit on your low back and you can really like start to feel that rub as well.
Okay, gotcha. And then between the balance and the posture, which you both mentioned, is there much benefit to having the weight in the front and the back simultaneously, or is it better to have just all the weight on the back?
It depends on climate, I would say too, because when you have a weighted vest, especially the ones that almost look like a Kevlar vest where they're really covering your chest, for some people that can make breathing a little bit more difficult, or thinking about hotter temperatures, it can trap heat too. So personally, I prefer a ruck just because one, I can swap plates out easily. I feel like it doesn't constrict my breathing at all. It helps posture. So that's my personal preference, but I would say it really depends on the person. I would say there's no like wrong way to ruck. I will say, like going up too fast in weight or distance, sure, you might get hurt. So that's the thing is just kind of scaling things up slowly too, and not like letting your ego get a part of it. Because I do see like people go too heavy, too fast, too far, and now they're, out of commission.
Yeah, got it. That is a real thing. Like using a ruck, one I've used in the past had weight in the front and in the back, and breathing did feel a little bit restrictive. So that definitely is a real thing.
Was yours more like a vest where you're kind of putting in the little weights?
It was, I mean, it was the plates that you would put in,
Okay.
but yeah, it was several plates you put in the front. It was plates you put in the back. The one that I had was a combo, so it was like a maximum, I think, 50 pound one that sat, and then you could add like a 20 pound like accessory one on top of it. And I'm like you, like all or nothing. So of course, like yeah, I'm doing the full 70 and having a struggle breathing when I've never done rucking in my life. So maybe that was the issue.
Exactly, exactly. I feel like with our male listeners, that's always like, okay, you got to rein it back a little bit. Yeah.
So let's go there next. Let's talk about like people who are interested in this and want to get started. What are some beginner kind of pitfalls besides like getting a little bit extra weight? How do people know like what they're looking for as far as shopping goes? Yeah, what are there particular features they want? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say you can start with something that you already have on hand. I, for example, used an old backpack. I wrapped a 10-pound dumbbell and a towel and threw that in there. It wasn't the most comfortable because I just wanted to prove to myself that I was going to start rucking. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. So I'm going to upgrade my equipment. I would say once you hit like 10, 20 pounds or more, then you're going to want something more stable. Again, a specific rucksack. I really like Go Ruck. They have a ton of different like sizes, and one thing that they have is a ruck plate carrier. So it's perfect for just like going around the neighborhood. All it holds is a ruck plate, so it's not like big and bulky, and that's probably the thing that I use the most. But that will have padded shoulder straps. Some of them will have a chest strap or a sternum strap so you can kind of cinch the weight across your chest. Some packs, once you get into heavier loads, will have like a hip belt, and those can help distribute weight to your hips too, because those are going to cinching the weight to your hips is going to help translate to some of those bigger muscle groups as well, like your legs and glutes. I will say if you put on a pack and you're leaning forward, so it's natural to have a little bit of lean, but if you really feel like you're hunching over, that's usually a pretty good sign that you've got too much weight on. I would scale back, and you can always challenge yourself in different ways, like going a longer distance or really playing with speed. It doesn't always have to be about adding weight every time.